Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Reds Rundown podcast, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob. He's Joe. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, I have a feeling what you're going to say today, but how are you doing on this fine morning?
Doing good. NFL just wrapped up. We got college basketball going to wrap up here soon. We got baseball coming up. It's a good time. Pitchers and catchers just reported, so I'm excited to hear some of the news coming out of camp starting today. We're recording before they officially report since they're a little bit behind us on the clock, but I'm excited to start hearing some news.
Yeah, me too. This is when baseball season's back. End of the Super Bowl, start of pitchers and catchers coinciding, basically. Almost right one after the other. Wonderful stuff. Very excited. Today we are going to be discussing pitchers and catchers reporting, like Joe just prefaced. Keith Law has put out his top 20 prospects, so we will be going over those small moves that the Reds have made, but ones that I think will be interesting. And we're going to give our first crack at a prediction for the Reds rotation. So, if you don't want to miss any of that, you should subscribe. We're putting out Reds content on at least a weekly basis. Sometimes you guys will be getting shorts as well. Maybe some other stuff in the future. But for now, you guys shouldn't miss out on this. We're talking Reds every single week. There's going to be a lot to go over. Baseball season's back, technically. So, very excited about that. Also, question of the day is going to be, who do you think is going to be in the Reds rotation? Give us your predictions for who is going to make it on that. I have already gone through and redone the entire lineup and depth chart so far, Joe. So very excited to kind of reveal that as we get going. And then, like he said, with pitchers and catchers reporting, we will start to know more about potential little injuries and stuff like that will come about. We will be making changes to our predictions as we continue on towards baseball season. Opening day is what? March 27th? Is that right? I think that's right. I think it's almost always like a Thursday, right? Thursday. So it's either that or April 3rd. But very excited before, we've got, a month and a half before we play the Giants to start the season, Joe? But let's hop into it here. Small moves. The Reds. Owen White, after the Reds went out and got Taylor Rogers, was claimed by the Yankees. Thank you, Owen White, for being a part of the Reds organization for a month. Maybe less. I don't know. It is what it is. The Reds traded, I think it was cash considerations for him. So, a little bit of a loss there technically, considering you don't even get to trade him. He's just claimed. So unfortunate there, but they make it back up with Casey Legumina. Austin Hayes signed his contract, and he was the one who was put on waivers, and he was traded to the Mariners for cash. Our buddies in the Northwest, Joe, we seemingly trade with them every offseason at this point. That is what it is. One note that I'd forgotten about, I believe it was last week even, but that Joe is very excited about. Ian Gibaut comes back on a minor league deal, and Joe, I will say, I had slightly forgotten about him, as I'm sure other people did. I did not end up putting him on my relief pitcher list, but he is absolutely in consideration, as this man was solid when he was healthy. He was not healthy all year last year. He should be healthy this year. I want you to give me a little thought here on Ian Gibaut and his opportunity with pitchers and catchers reporting again.
It's a little bit of a one-year wonder, but that 2023 season was so good. We had other players who were all-stars talking about how impressed they were with them, which really stuck out to me because you don't really see that from other teams saying that about someone like Ian Gibaut, like a non-starter, a non-star, not like a closer. He was just kind of like a workman type mentality from the bullpen. Pretty good stuff. I don't know what to expect after the injuries last year. 2 games, 4.5 ERA. It's not the worst thing in the world, but he had trouble staying healthy.
Yeah.
And that's why we initially got rid of him this offseason. I think bringing him back on a minor league deal is kind of good for both sides to kind of see what he still has. I think he can be a contributor in this bullpen. Last week we talked about how many lefties we have in this bullpen. I do think there is a little bit of I would say, void with righties. We don't know exactly how the righties are going to stack up. Like, is Lexus going to be the closer? I mean, kind of looks like it right now.
Yeah.
What other righties are we going to... Is Nick Martinez going to be in the bullpen? Just a lot of stuff. I know we're going to talk about him later a little bit too, but that kind of creates a spot where he could be successful. Can he refine that form from 2023? I don't know. That's just all about the injury, but I do trust Derek Johnson to get the most out of him if he has anything left in the tank. I think he's 31 now, so that'll be his age 31 season this year. So we'll see. But I'd like the move because it's low cost, and like if he pitches like he did in 2023, where it's a 3.33 ERA, and other teams are talking about how good he is and how his pitches move and everything, that is a good thing for the Reds to have. As we need a bullpen help here, we still need another bullpen arm or two if we really want to be seen as competitors. I don't really expect us to spend a lot of cash anymore before the season, so this is like the best we can do.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. If he takes Emilio Pagan's spot and Emilio Pagan gets cut, oh boy, color me sad. Really going to be heartbroken about that one. So, sorry, Emilio Pagan. I'm sure you're a wonderful person. It's just, I don't know if David Bell just consistently used him in the wrong spots, Joe. It just felt like every time I watched him, I was ready for him to give up a home run. My first game I went to last year in May, they put him in. I forget which team they were playing, but it was against a lefty for some stupid freaking reason. And I looked to my dad and I said, we're up 2-1. We're going to lose this game 3-2. And he gave up a 2-run home run, I believe is how that went. So, you just can't have nice things sometimes as a Reds fan. And I would love to see, Ian Jabot be the guy that we saw in 2023, like you said, and take, I'm hopeful that'll be Emilio Pagan's spot, because I think the other two people who will go over relief pitchers most likely next week, once we have heard a little bit more, seen a little bit more about what's going on, who's actually going to be in contention. But I've already made my list, and there are 3 lefties on it for now, but I think one will probably get moved. So we'll have to see what happens there, but small move, but yeah, those are the types of moves that I like to see the Reds making, Joe. They can be very impactful if you can kind of find those guys and bring them back. And I think Jabot may end up starting in AAA, kind of get his feet back under him. But by the end of the season, I would not be shocked to see him coming up pretty much at the first injury, if I'm being honest with you, which means he could even make the roster. So we'll see.
No, I mean, it could. Let's see how healthy he is, but it's good to have too many arms. Last year, we had relief pitchers that were bad. Even Pagan at 4.5 ERA, he wasn't one of our worst relievers. As bad as it sounds. But that's because we had so many injuries. We ran guys out there that, like, to be honest, had no business being starters, had no business being relievers. We talked about Justin Wilson and how bad he was at times last year. So Casey Luque, we just talked about him. So it's not the worst thing in the world to have arms here. Yeah, I would expect him to probably start in AAA while he finds his footing. We've had injured guys in the past kind of like, start with Arizona and then move to AAA and then maybe move up is kind of the thing. But I'm with you. It's good to have more arms, regardless of some of your favorites like Emilio Pagan or some of my favorites like Ian Jabot. It's good to have more arms.
Wow, I couldn't agree more. We'll move on. Keith Law, top 20 prospects. What I will say, Joe, is we picked the exact wrong day, I think, to go to MLB.com's prospect list because it is now coming soon. I think they were literally changing it as we were trying to check. So, like you said, it was down for maintenance. Unfortunate, but we do have our first top 20 prospect list for the Reds. I'm going to read them all off. We're not going to talk about all of them, but I think there are some names that we will be looking at. Interesting, to start the list, very interestingly enough, Chase Burns over Rhett Lauder. So you got Burns, Lauder, Edwin Arroyo, Cam Collier, Sal Stewart, Tyson Lewis, Sammy Stafura, Alfredo Duno, Chase Petty, Peyton Stovall, Sheng En Lin, I believe is how that is pronounced, Adam Serwinowski, Hector Rodriguez, Ricardo Cabrera, Luke Holman, Connor Phillips, Tristan Smith, Ty Floyd, Luis May, and Kyle Henley. There are a couple names on this list at the bottom I want to start with, Joe. A lot of people liked Luis May, and they were worried he was going to get drafted in the Rule 5 draft. He did not. Apparently, he is starting to really shoot up the Reds prospect list. He is a guy who I have seen somebody who is slightly notable say that he could be a top 10 prospect by the end of the year for the Reds. I'm very interested in him. Seeing Connor Phillips fall down but still be on the list, I actually think is a positive for him because you can't have a worse season than he did last year. Otherwise, he'll be out of baseball. So We will have to hope that he has been working hard over the last 3 months and figured it out. I don't even think he was invited to camp for spring training, Joe. So that is how far he has fallen. Hector Rodriguez is a little lower than I would have expected. He will also be at spring training, interestingly enough. Sheng Lin, player, I believe, from Taiwan, if I remember correctly, was one of the first international signings from the East that I can remember the Reds having. I believe he plays shortstop, if I remember. He is an interesting prospect. He's still got a little bit of development left, but yeah. Chase Petty, I recently saw, Joe, as well, was a guy who a lot of people are predicting will rise up the list very quickly as well. He had a better season, especially in the second half, if I remember correctly, for last year. So those are like, I think Chase Petty's 9. So the 9 and below guys, we'll talk a little bit more about the upper guys, but who of those guys stood out to you? What guys do you want to talk about for a minute?
Yeah, I don't think I didn't have those fears of Luis May getting drafted in the Rule 5 draft. He barely got to Double-A last year, and he had a 4.15 ERA. So like, it's good that he has stuff. It's good that he seemed like he progressed. He maybe didn't pitch the best. It was like one of the stories where he never pitched really well in his whole major league career. I think the lowest ERA he had was like 5.4, and then it kind of got better last year. So I didn't have anything wrong with that. I think I'll just kind of talk to, Connor Phillips, obviously we'd love for him to come back and have a good comeback story, but honestly, this is pretty weak. This kind of shows how we are still very top heavy with our prospects. And, Chase Petty, I guess, is not the worst to have. At what number you said that was, like 9?
9, yeah.
But it's not awful, but, like, they need to keep on building this thing up. And I think part of the reason, Rob, why this is not, like, the greatest is because we have that strategy of, like, taking those college pitchers, which are already at the top of our prospect list, but then we take a lot of high school hitters, too, and that's, like, it takes time for them to develop, even though we're going to talk about a couple of them coming up here, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think the Red strategy is fine, especially, like, let's be honest. You could have 20 great prospects, but if your top ones aren't, like, excellent, like, top tier, then what does it matter, right? Like, let's be real. Luis May is an interesting story from what I had heard, back in June and everything. Like, he was starting to kind of figure it out a little bit. There's a chance we never talk about him again after this season, right? Like, same thing with Ty Floyd or, Tristan Smith, right? Like, these guys are guys who, most likely, they're not going to be your everyday players. It's very rare that you see a guy start off on a list in the top 20 that's near the bottom of it and actually be a really good player on your team. Most of the time, it's your top tier guys. And I think the Reds do have some good top tier guys. I think specifically their top 4 are all have the potential to be everyday impactful players. I think that's more the word I'm looking for. There are 2 in the top 10 who I think can be impactful who are not in that top 4. I do think Chase Petty, like, everybody knows that he's had good stuff. He is relearning control, which is why his velocity has been down, right? He's going from being a thrower to a pitcher, and I think that that's actually a very good thing for him. There's a world where he either figures out his control enough to be a starter, and they continue to see his velocity decline to like 96 instead of the 100, or they end up just saying, screw it, as long as you can throw, 12 strikes in an inning, we'll take it, and you're going to be a potential closer, right? Alfredo Duno as well, if I remember correctly, has really good power, and is a guy who I think that they think will continue to develop. So, like him, Tyson Lewis also, not bad, recent draft pick. Wouldn't hate to see him continue to climb the ranks. I'm still very unsure about Sal Stewart, but I'm glad to see him at least not being ranked above Cam Collier. So, very happy about that. Let's start there. Let's start at Cam Collier and work our way up, and then we'll move on to our rotation predictions. But Joe, I'm excited about Cam Collier still. I really am. I know we talked a little bit about him last week, but to see him getting the respect from Keith Law, who I think is generally pretty good at looking at prospects, I really think he's going to take a big jump. And I don't care if it's only that he bats 270, but he'll hit like 20-something home runs, and I will be like, okay, this kid may be a 230 batter in Major League Baseball, but he has the potential, especially as a Red, to hit like 40 home runs a year, and that to me is like an Adam Dunn plus maybe, and I would be fine with that.
Yeah, something to note with this list first. I really don't like this list. I respect Keith Law and everything he does, but honestly, maybe I do like the list, and it just shows how weak we are. So you're right. The top four are the four.
Yes,
that we feel good about. Sal Stewart is a nice man. I don't know. Maybe he could be good. After that, we got guys who, like Sammy Stefuro was a second-round pick in 2023 at a high school hitter. Seemingly hit pretty well for average last year as time spent in rookie league and in single A. And then Tyson Lewis I don't think he played at the end of I don't know if you have anything stats on him, but I don't think he even played. He was drafted out of high school last year, and I don't think he played at all. So there's still a lot of Tyson Lewis was a second-round pick for us, but he's also a high schooler from Nebraska. It's not like he's like one from those talent-rich states. So
yeah.
I'm not going to act like I've seen him play all that much, but just kind of like looking at some of the stuff like that isn't great. Like if we have some injuries, we need to bring some of these guys up. It's not great that we have guys ranked in our top 10 who have not taken a minor league at bat, but or college at bat either, which is kind of crazy. With Cam Collier, I'm a big fan of his game. I would like him probably even over Arroyo at different times. There's more volatility with him, but I think his ceiling is higher than Arroyo's.
I would agree.
There could be a chance that he doesn't pan out at all, but there's also the chance that he does hit 230, 240, and can kind of have that pop to his bat and be a star. So I do like that. He's number 4 on this list. There's just so much potential, and I think Keith Law, a lot of times he does kind of like look for that potential. Hey, if this guy can be great, I'm going to rank him higher rather than like what he is right now, which is really cool. So
I agree.
I'm still pretty high on him. I think he's still a little bit farther away from contributing to a major league team. He still needs a couple more years, probably, maybe this year at least, and then maybe some of the next year. But you're right. If we want to start at Cam Collier for the top 4, it's not a bad spot to be in for your 4th best prospect.
And I think that's what I think you agree with me on this. Like, if your top 4 are all guys who can probably, hopefully, have an impact, then you're fine. Because it's very rare that you're going to be bringing up more prospects than that on a regular basis. And I think that's where he puts Tyson Lewis and Sammy Stefuro, like you said. They're near the top because I think that they will eventually make their way into our top 5, and we will see what happens with them. But very interesting. Next up, we have Edwin Arroyo. Joe, I think, like you said, his ceiling is not as high as any of the other guys in this top 4, maybe even top 5 list with Stewart. But his floor is probably the highest, potentially. At least for hitters, definitely, right? He's consistent. I think he's going to be a solid bat. I think he's going to be a really good infielder. I worry that we are not going to have space for him and he is going to get traded, if I'm being honest with you. He is the one who I'm most worried about because I think he may be ready by about halfway through the season, and I just don't know with specifically with them getting Gavin Lux, I don't really know where Edwin Arroyo is going to play, and he's about ready. I think he could maybe use this year, but beyond this year, I don't really see what is going to happen next for him, and he is arguably, and I'm saying this arguably, the best defensive player potentially on the 40-man roster. I know Ellie's very good, and obviously graded very highly, but from what I have seen and what I have read, Edwin Arroyo is that smooth. He's got potential Gold Glove hands, is what I have seen and heard. So I don't know if that'll translate or not, right? Like, I really don't know, but he is that good defensively, and he's a solid hitter. So I don't know what they're going to do with him, Joe, but that's where I'm at with him. And we'll have to see. Again, maybe I overstated with Ellie. I just think Ellie has some very bonehead mistakes at times, and then he makes up for it in a lot of the analytics with some of the outstanding plays that other people just simply couldn't make. Maybe I should say more that Arroyo is consistent. Consistency is big for him. So, I don't know. Where are you at with Arroyo?
Yeah, I think you are a little bit overstating his defense. He looks smooth, but if you look at his fielding percentage, it's not great for a shortstop. It's like
It's
about
fair.
950s. But there's potential to grow. So maybe he does. He does have some smooth. If you watch some highlights, like yeah, he looks smooth, like he can do the job. Um, I think because he's already been in trade talks. We talked about. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. We talked about
Yeah.
Luis Robert. He was in the talks for Luis Robert. That he probably will get moved. I think with the low fielding percentage, relatively obviously for shortstop, and the fact that he's not like a huge hitter, like hitting like 250s in the minor league, I think you probably have to move him. There's no space. You would love to have another prospect that you could bring up maybe at the end of this year or next year. But if you are trying to win, which at least me and Rob want to do, I don't know about the front office or the owners, but at least me
Yeah.
and Rob want to win. I think you have to move them and try to get someone else. And probably the way they're operating is probably not going to be a rental. It's going to be someone who they have control over for a longer time.
Yep.
With all the trades we've seen, even last year, that's what they're going for. It's not a bad third prospect to have because he has shown flashes. I wonder how he does coming back from the injury last year. I think that's going to be crucial to see how he does. Now, and the good thing for him is that I think this is kind of like a year where he can't, like, because we have so many numbers, he can kind of take the pressure off. And whether he starts, I guess AAA probably is where he's going to start, maybe AA because he's never really advanced past AA before that.
Yeah.
He has a chance to kind of grow and develop and not have the pressure of like, hey man, you're one of our top prospects, you're a top position prospect right now, like you have to produce, you have to move up. That's the good news for him. So there's a chance he's on the team at some point this year. I'd love to see him succeed. I think there's too few spots. If you bring him up, there's too few at bats for him to develop. And I think, again, if you want to win, maybe trading him's the best course. But we also have to see, like, part of it's not up to him in that regard too, because like we have to see how some of these other guys do. Like, is Marte going to be better at third base this year?
Yep.
Is McClain going to be healthy from injury, or is he going to get hurt again? Like, it might be, hey kid, we need you, but right now I think the pressure's off until we have some of those things pop up.
Yeah, and I don't know if Marte is got too many at bats now to be ranked, but it seems like he might. So, or we should all hope that he does, because if he's not in the top 20 prospects right now, then we're in trouble. And I think honestly, I may have listened to Barry Larkin too much about Arroyo. I will be honest, I did not realize that his fielding stats were that not great. So,
well, here's the thing too. Like, shortstop is the most important defensive position. Everyone will tell you that. Young shortstops, because he's been, he's only played baseball up to the age 20 so far because he's hurt
he's still
last year
very
and everything.
young. Yeah,
he's young, and that's the position where you're going to have guys who need to figure it out. You would love to see more of like a natural, and he does have flashes of that. He needs to be more consistent. So I'm not ruling out him becoming a great defender. I'm not ruling him out even being like a consistent defender. But for right now, like, I don't think you can put him in every day and expect like him to be better than some of the guys we do have or some of the other guys around the league, and that's fine. Like, I think if he continues to hit the ball, he can be a good piece for a team and have a decent play at shortstop defensively too would be nice.
I couldn't agree more. We'll head in here to Rhett Lauder and Chase Burns. I'm going to lump them into a little bit together, Joe, for time's sake, but let's be honest, like, they're both going to be very good. I think the Reds are set up very well. I think Burns doesn't, even though there's still a chance that if he's just outstanding at camp, they may have to find a spot to put him in, right, and figure it out, right? But at the same time, like, you don't want to ruin his development, and I could see them starting him in Double-A, which would still be very high for a player who's just been drafted, right? But I think he will, make his way up pretty quickly, and I think even potentially be available towards the end of the year. I think last week I compared him to like Cole Hamels and what's his name from Wainwright from the Cardinals. Where they got like some little spot innings and stuff like that because they were just so freaking talented on their playoff teams. And then the next year they worked their way into the rotation, right? So, wouldn't surprise me with Burns. With Lauder, though, I think he is so severely being underrated after what I saw last year. It is almost mind-boggling to me. Now, I know that, oh, he's facing like hitters that are tired, it's the end of the year, blah, blah, blah. Dude, he's tired too. He's been pitching the entire year at that point, right? Like, and he's still coming out and dominating. And it was very refreshing to watch. They'll have more tape on him. He'll have sophomore struggles without a doubt. But I think he is being severely underrated, Joe, for what he could be. And I really like, he's got such great command and he's got such great movement on his pitches. And, he's the kind of guy that, like, yes, he's another very high floor, very, very high floor, relatively low ceiling guy. But I would rather have this guy who I think, dude, like, he's a guy who could pitch probably like 180 innings a year and get you a lot of good stuff. Like, he actually reminds me, after watching some more tape on Brady Singer, they have not the same repertoire, but they're lower velocity guys who pitch to contact who will get you outs. And I just love that. I think in Cincinnati that's going to play well, and we kind of saw it last year.
Yeah, this is like kind of my big bugaboo with some of these lists, like I talked about. Some of the high school hitters who haven't even played minor league baseball being rated so highly is like kind of shocking to me. And there is an extent of like, hey, if you draft Bryce Harper, yeah, he's probably your number one prospect from day one, but it's a little bit different when they're not Bryce Harper. I'm with you. I think Rhett Lauder is really underrated and evidenced by Chase Burns being ranked above him. So again, another guy who has not played any minor league baseball. We talked about how much that bugs me that they didn't at least try to get him some starts down the stretch. Worked out for Rhett Lauder's, maybe it'll work out for Chase Burns too. Rhett Lauder's last year in college was objectively better than Chase Burns last year in college. So that, 2023 was Rhett Lauder's last year, 2024 was Chase Burns. Rhett Lauder had a 1.87 ERA, 15-0, didn't lose a start. And that's, part of it is his good team, but he was awesome. And Chase Burns, 2.7 ERA, 10-1, still very, very good, especially with like how much competition these guys both played at Wake Forest. And I think we're kind of falling for the fact that, like, Rhett Lauder's not a strikeout pitcher. Right, like the highest strikeouts per 9 inning he has, I think, is 12.8, which was in the summer league, not even in college baseball, but the summer league where they all play. And like last year, we have Chase Burns having a 17.2 strikeouts per 9 inning, which is ridiculous. So I'm not taking anything away from Chase Burns, but we have a guy who pitched in Major League Baseball, had a 1.17 ERA, and yeah, he only had 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but again, it somewhat matters, but to me, if you can get outs doing what you're going to do, if you can, like Andrew Abbott does, like he doesn't strike out a lot of people, he pitches to contact and gets the job done. If you can do that, you are going to be a good pitcher. If you can work on your location, you're going to be a good pitcher in this league. So I'm a little bit shocked that Burns is ranked over Lauder. I think both of these guys can have huge, huge impacts on the Reds in the future. I think Rhett Lauder obviously more in the near term. Chase Burns, maybe he starts in AAA, and if he does really awesome, maybe he comes up later on, especially because we have so many good arms. But I do think this is like more of like we're overanalyzing the fact that Burns just gets more strikeouts, which a lot of people value and say that's the most important thing, and that's fine. But when this guy's actually played in the majors and done so well, it's kind of like, okay, that's kind of weird that you have him ranked above him. So two very good prospects. I'm glad we have both, and I'm glad we have some pitchers for the future that I think are going to help when we lose some of these guys to free agency or whatever in the future. But that I do think he's underrated. I do think he can make a big part of a rotation this year, Rhett Lauder, that is. And I do love the future of Chase Burns, I guess, is the main point here.
Yeah, the Reds have done a great job. I mean, it was kind of easy in the sense that, like, those are the two guys you take. I do know that Burns was a little bit of a surprise based on some of the hitters that were there, but I'm fine with it. I'd rather have great pitching every single day over great hitting, because I've seen plenty of great hitting teams just not be able to get over the hump. Comparison Bengals even right now, just in terms of great offense, terrible defense, right? I'd rather have a great defense to start, and then hopefully your offense will come along and do enough, right? Because at that point it's like kind of you just got to do enough, right? So I'm hopeful for this rotation, and that's where we're going to go next, Joe. We're going to start at the top. I can't imagine we have different people here. Hunter Green, right? I think had a very good shot and put himself into the Cy Young contention for this year. I think if he's healthy, and I think if the Reds play well this year, I legitimately think he would win the first legitimate, sorry, Trevor Bauer, in that regard, legitimate Cy Young award in what is it ever? Wasn't he the first one? Wasn't Trevor Bauer the first Reds one? So the first one ever. I think he's got a shot to do that. I think people are vastly underestimating him as well. This year, he took huge steps last year. He has matured so much as a player, Joe. I was so impressed with Hunter Green last year, and it's so nice to see a prospect that's been so hyped, so hyped, actually perform the way that he did.
Yeah, I'm flattered that I'm flattered. I'm excited that we have a manager that is going to trust him more. I think they're going to push him to pitch more innings this year. I think they're going to give him the ball to start opening day. That was a big. I was not happy when they gave that ball to Frankie Montas.
Me too.
That's one of the things that David Bell I think just messed up. Is like you have to give your young guy the ball on that situation who was drafted and is the next coming for this great franchise. You have to do that. So I think Terry Francona is going to push this guy forward, have him reach new heights. We talked about how he's a player's manager and like what he did with Pedro Martinez for that 1 year in Boston. Big fan of Hunter Green. We talked about before the season, like, hey, this guy could be in the Cy Young conversation, and he was at the end. If he didn't get hurt, he'd be. I don't know if he would have won it, but he would have been really close to that point. And I'm excited to see what he can do. If he's your ace and you have other pitchers behind him, I think you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
I agree. We'll move on. We don't want to spend too much time on the top guys, to be honest, because I think there's a lot more discussion to be, had for the last 2 or 3 spots specifically. Andrew Abbott, I don't know if he'll be the number 2 going in this season, but I am very confident that he will be in the rotation. That's the next guy I pretty much penned in. When he's not getting tired by the end of the season, he's very, very good. I want to see him work on his endurance for sure. But this kid just twirls games, Joe. Twirls them. Twirls them like I haven't seen a Reds pitcher twirl in many, many moons. And what I mean by that is he's not overpowering. Like you said, he is a contact guy sometimes, and other times he'll throw that up, fastball, and nobody's going to touch him. And it's like he's throwing 1,000 miles an hour. It's very impressive. I really like what he's doing. I think he's got potential to be a number 2 starter, but even in this rotation, he may be our 4th or 5th best starter, and that's okay with me, honestly, because I think he's that good. We are heading into a very fun era of Reds pitching, and when I can honestly tell you that I don't even know that he's the 2nd best guy on this list that I have here, I think that is impressive.
Yeah, he's, I think, going to be the 4th starter for me. This has a lot to do with stamina issues. You don't want a guy at the top of the rotation who can't make it the full year. I think he is like maybe the highest floor when he is healthy of like, what you're getting out of this guy. Like even Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and some other guys we've had issues with, like how they're going to place pitches. But he's 4. He's going to be a reliable 4. I think he'd be one of the best 4 pitchers in baseball. But you said it, like, you just have to be okay with, there's going to be some games where he pitches to contact and he misses a little bit and gives up home runs. He gave up 25 home runs last year. That was the most I think anyone gave up on the Reds. By a decent number too. So that's the thing, is like, you have to be okay with that. But as I mentioned last time, when you have a fireball pitcher like Hunter Green and then you have Andrew Abbott later on in your rotation, like, it is hard for batters to prepare for that. You have so many different looks. So I'm excited for him. I think, again, just like Hunter Green, Terry Francona is going to push him forward as well and help him push deeper into games, push him deeper into the season, and I'm excited to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think he'll get his home run numbers down this year. Even if he gets them down to like 20, what he did was almost all those were solo home runs, and I gotta credit him that, where he locked it down when he needed to. And if you're gonna give up a solo home run every so often, then I'd rather 20 solo home runs than a bunch of 2 and 3 run homers. So pretty significant changes there. Hopefully he'll get there. My guy who I have probably penciled in, I'm not gonna say penned in yet, but is probably our number 2 guy, is gonna be Brady Singer, Joe. They went out and got him, and man, oh man, I've watched more and more highlights of him. Not only is he a great guy, by the way. If you haven't seen the video of him paying off his parents' debt and stuff, like right after he got his first big contract, that stuff's really cool. But like, dude, this guy's a gamer. He is a gamer. Now, he again doesn't have the huge strikeout stuff, but man, he reminds me a lot of Mike Leake, dude. That 2-seam ball moves insanely, like, he's got a great slider to go along with it. I love that this Reds team is going to have guys, like you said, across the spectrum of different types of pitchers, right? He's like, you have a left-hander like Abbott, who is also kind of similar to almost a right-hander in Brady Singer, just in terms of, again, lower velocity guys who can move the ball around, pitch to contact. Like, there are 5 almost very distinctly different guys in this rotation. And I think he's going to be really good. I really do. I think he's gonna do very well in Great American Ballpark, and I think he's going to be a really solid number 2 guy. I don't know if come playoff time he will end up being the number 2 guy. I think there's one person in here who I will talk about who I think could end up taking that spot for him, but I think he's going to go out there, throw you 180 innings, get a 3.5 to 3.8 ERA maybe, and just win you games, man. I really do. I love the acquisition of Brady Singer, and I love the fact that we got him for more than 1 year, which is nice.
Yeah, he's number 2 for me. I think he might stay there for most of the year, right? There's definitely pitchers with better potential than him.
Yeah.
But he's so solid. I think you're right. I think the best way to put it is he's kind of a mixture of all the guys we already have. Like, he does have strikeout stuff. It's not as dynamic as Lodolo or Green. He does have good placement. Maybe not as good as Andrew Abbott. And I think it's good to have that.
Yep.
For him, I'm looking for consistency because his rookie year was fine. I think he came an 8th rookie of the year. And then he's had 2 good years, 2 bad years. You know, 1 bad year, 1 good year, 1 bad year, 1 good year. Good year was last year. So if you can keep your ERA below 4, keep us in ball games, you know, that is a steady number 2 to have while we have all this volatility with, for me, you know, 3, 4, 5, which is going to be, you know, young guys who get injured, young guys who don't have the stamina, Nick Martinez, who we don't know if he's in the bullpen or not, you know, whoever that might be. That's going to be kind of the thing. Is if he can stay, you know, if he can pitch as well as he did last year with a 3.71 ERA, that's fine. We're cool with that. That's okay. If the other guys 3 and 4 can maybe have more volatility than him and he's just steady Eddie, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We'll move on. Number 4, the guy who I think could ultimately, should he be healthy, be our number 2 come playoff time. In terms of, I don't know. I know sometimes they mix it up in the playoffs, but you know what I mean. Nick Lodolo. Dude, when this guy is healthy, he is unhittable. But he has yet to show that ability, so that's why he's here at number 4 for me. I think he will make the rotation pretty much right away, and I could see him probably sticking here at the 4 spot, to be honest with you. I think they might go Abbott, or if they really want to change it up every game, right, since Lodolo is more of a harder thrower, harder slider, right, more strikeout pitcher, maybe they do go, you know, Green, Singer, Lodolo, Abbott. But I think it's between these 2 lefties to kind of mix things up here. And I'll be honest with you, dude, I love watching Nick Lodolo pitch. When he is, like, that White Sox game that he had last year, it was like watching him pitch against high schoolers. I mean, I know they were bad, so that's why I'm calling them high schoolers instead of college kids. But, like, I mean, he was masterful. I think he struck out, like, 12 guys. Like, he was just insane. And he is just... Like I've heard hitters come out and just say that when he's on, like, that slider is almost unhittable, righty or lefty. And his arm angle is insane. Like, God, he just has to stay healthy, dude. He could be so good if he can just be healthy. And I hope, similar to Abbott, not just endurance, but I just want to see him work on making sure that there is the lowest possibility that any random injury could happen to him. I want all of his toes to be cracked correctly. I want his hamstring to be rolled out every second of every day. I want that thing to be as loose as spaghetti, man. I don't know.
No blisters.
No blisters.
At all this
yeah,
year.
no. I hope that he's been using what are those things when they're sewing, the thumb thing, whatever that's called.
A thimble.
A thimble. Yeah, I want him to be, you know, thimble man for every single thing that he's doing. If he's gaming, I want him wearing gloves. You know, I do not want that joystick digging into his fingers in any way. I protect this man with bubble wrap and just throw him out there every 5 days and let him go to town.
Yeah, I mean, objectively, the worst season that we have of any of the top 4 guys we mentioned, and probably the 5th guy, whoever you name, is probably going to be worse than that just based on the final stats.
Yeah.
4.76 ERA, but when you take into account how many injuries he tried to pitch through, I think that you could lower that by like maybe a point. There was still some volatility to his game, and that needs to be addressed. But yeah, he's got the best stuff on at least best moving stuff on this pitching staff. Like there's Hunter Green has like obviously the faster pitches. Nick Lodolo, his off-speed pitches are incredible, and it's so fun to watch every time. So I have him as number 3, and like Abbott is number 4. That probably won't end up being the case, but I think it accounts for the upside Lodolo has, where if he's on, like he was for a couple of weeks last year, him and Hunter Green, when they were both on, at different points in the season, of course, were some of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yep.
And we have people on MLB Network talking about them, all this stuff. And we talked about how Hunter Green, I think, has like 10.1 Ks per 9 innings. Lodolo had 9.5, and again, that number would be up if he wasn't as injured as much as he was, too. It was some of the games he had where he had so many strikeouts were incredible. We're looking at Brady Singer to be steady Eddie. I think Lodolo is going to be one of those guys who's more up and down this year still. But if he can give us like a 4 ERA, it has like some games where he strikes out 15 hitters, 13, 14, 15 hitters, that might be okay when we have Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott if they're more reliable as well.
I'll be honest with you. I think if he is healthy, because you can see where his injuries come in. This kid's like a 2.5 ERA guy when he's healthy. I'm going to be just totally honest with you. I think if he is healthy, this has the opportunity to be a top 5 rotation in baseball. I think he's that significant to them. I think if he is struggling with injury, struggling with endurance, I think it puts him into still a top 10, but he may lose his spot if he can't stay healthy. So he's going to have to stay healthy because there are guys that are right behind him. We're going to talk about one of them now because I think you and I both have the number 5 guy is Nick Martinez. The Reds are paying him to be a starting pitcher. I'm just going to be honest. Either that or they're going to move him to closer. Those are the only ways I can see it. I understand he'll probably most likely be a back and forth guy, right? I really do see that as what's going to happen here because I will preface this with Joe. I'm going with a 6-man rotation to start the year, personally. Mostly because I think Nick Martinez will get used in other situations and they will need another consistent starter, and that will give him potentially even the opportunity to pitch a little bit in relief if they absolutely need him at times and still have 5 guys up here who are true starters. This guy has gone back and forth. I've never seen a guy that I can remember. Maybe never. Never is not a good word. I can't remember the last time I saw a guy who in season went from being a starting pitcher to a reliever for a very long period of time and then went back to a starting pitcher with such ease. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time you have to get stretched out over weeks of time, right? And I know this guy was still pitching 2-3 innings at a time at times, but like this, he can easily just go in between roles. And I do think that is very valuable. I have him here as my 5 starter because of what he did at the end of the season last year. He's not worth the $21 whatever million they're paying him. He's probably worth about 10 to 12, maybe about half of what he's getting paid. But he's going to be very good. He'll be the most overpaid, but potentially the best 5 starter in baseball as well. And I'm fine with that, Joe. If he can be even close to what he was last year, outside of a few weeks, then this guy as well could push them into a top 5 rotation, without a doubt.
Yeah, I currently have Brett Lauder as 5. But let me explain, because
no, that's fair.
I don't understand what the Reds are doing here. Because $20 million is too much for Nick Martinez as a starter, as a closer, whatever. It's too much. And that makes me think starter, right? But then I also think about, you burned a year of Brett Lauder because you brought him up last year when the games didn't matter. I don't want to take that confidence away from Brett Lauder by sending him to the minors or moving him to the bullpen. And even if you're going to do 6-man rotation, then I think it's still just better to have 5 and have Nick Martinez be that guy who sometimes starts and sometimes goes to the bullpen. Martinez had a great year. I kind of think he'd be best used as we have a 5-man rotation. Brett Lauder's the 5 to start the year. Keep his confidence going. Because we know we're not competing for a World Series this year, right? In our wildest dreams, I think we would. We haven't predicted this yet, but make the playoffs is what we want to do. Maybe win a series, and then anything can happen. But it's still a lot when you're going up against teams like the Dodgers. Keep his confidence, keep his development going, and not do a 5-man rotation without him. Not do a 6-man rotation where his starts are being sacrificed, because I think that would be bad. I think Nick Martinez might be a closer in the analytical term or term of the word, right? Like I think it's going to be, hey, seventh inning. Nick Lodolo is getting tired. He has runners on first and second. We're only up by one. Nick Martinez, you're in the game, man. Like, this is the most important. It's not like ninth inning, but this is the most important inning of the ball game because of what's happening. So that's the only thing I can say is, like, I don't know. I'm with you. Like, 20 million's a lot. That typically means starter, closer. I would just really hate how they handled the Rhett Lauder situation if it is a five-man rotation without him. When Nick Martinez can go back and forth pretty seamlessly, honestly. So that's my only thing. It might end up being Nick Martinez just because of the money, but I think Terry kind of likes keeping the young guys confident. When he has older veterans, it seems like he's like more okay with like, hey, your role's going to change, or like you're going to do this. But with young guys, he wants to pep them up and get them better. So that's my only thing. It's like I think Nick Martinez might be the better pitcher for that spot right now. But I don't want to kill Rhett Lauder's confidence. I don't understand why we would burn that year. And yeah, either way, I think we'll be fine. The fifth starter in this rotation is still not bad, whichever one it is. The top four are incredible, and then the fifth one I think is going to be someone who's more of like a henchman who can get the job done, whether that is Lauder or Martinez. But that's my thought here. Is like I just don't want to be last season when we brought him up and got him some experience for not. Like it just then we ruin his confidence for the future.
Yeah, I don't remember how many innings it has to be for that to technically count, Joe. We'd probably have to look at that because I know there is still an inning limit even for accounting as his technical first year, if I remember correctly. So, because he technically, yes, he did come up before September call-ups, but I think he only made 6 starts, right? So, like, he may be under that limit. I can tell you're probably checking right now, so we'll have to see on that one. I agree with you in the terms of, especially if they did burn a year, and that's why I will say, while you're looking that up, I do have Rhett Lauder as that other guy. I think you and I are in the same boat. We're just looking at it maybe slightly differently. I do think that they will have Nick Martinez start sometimes. Maybe I shouldn't have said that he's going to be the 5 starter, but I think that he's going to be the guy that he's going to get starts. I can almost guarantee you one of these 5 guys, as much as I hate saying it, one of them are going to get injured. It's just going to happen. And Nick Martinez will instantly slot into that role. I don't even think it'll be much of a question. He'll go right into the rotation from the bullpen. Again, they overpaid. I wonder if they really just didn't expect him to take the qualifying offer, but I don't know why they would think that when, if we're being completely honest, he's not going to get $20 million AAV. It's just never going to happen, on the market. So it is a weird situation, but like we've talked about Rhett Lauder plenty, he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a very, very good pitcher. And if he ultimately is our 5 starter this year, this rotation, Joe, has the potential to be top 5. I think they're instantly top 10. And I think they have the potential to be top 5, maybe even top 3 in baseball. I'm not going to put them over the Dodgers, by any stretch, probably ever, just because there's just so much talent and young talent there. But dude, top 5 at a minimum, I think is very good, and I think puts the Reds in a really, really good spot as long as they can hit decently. So that's where I'm at with that. What are you finding right now on the interwebs?
Nothing, because baseball rules are stupid and not very explainable. But I do remember we looked it up last year, and it seemed like that was going to kill it because he was called up before September 1st. So until someone tells me differently, I'm rolling with they burned that year, especially because they could have this year too brought him up after Isn't it May? They can bring him up, and then at that point, that saves a year of arbitration as well. So because you don't get that full year of service, that's what a lot of teams have done. Like Chris Bryant back in the day, the Cubs did that, where they kept him in the minor leagues until I think it was like May something, and then brought him up, and they saved a year of arbitration because of that. So he's pre-arbitration for the next 3 years, 2025 through 2027.
Yeah,
and then he's
and
arbitration
then I think he's got
3
years of arbitration. So I don't think they wasted a year because that doesn't count.
Well, that'd be
right.
5, 26, 27, and then 3 years after it'd be 6 years instead of 7. So that would be
okay.
Yep. I mean, again, until someone tells me differently, I think that's what it is.
We'll have to see. Yeah, because I don't know if they're counting this year or not as pre-arb. Are they?
That's what it said. 2025, 2026.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm saying like I don't see it on like I'm looking at Spot Track right now, and I'm not seeing that. But I also don't see it past 2027 right now, so. I don't know. I feel like you're right. I just don't know. I honestly can't say that I'm sure. Oh no. Yeah, well, I don't know, because they're calling 2024 pre-arb as well, but he wasn't even on the team for that year, like for the full year. So maybe
Well, that's
you're
what I'm
right.
saying is
Yeah.
that would count. Yeah, the rule in long form had been if you're called up before September 1st, you burn that year, and I'm pretty sure that's still the rule. So
Okay. Well, then there you go. You're burned for Rhett Lauder to come up. So then, yeah, I think he's got to have a better chance. But this is new management. We'll have to see if that is going to be taken into consideration or not. I think, to be honest with you, part of Terry Francona's job is to just put out the best team that can win, right? And if he feels like Rhett Lauder is that guy, then I think he'll put him in there. And I think we will see that in spring training. But Joe, it is exciting. We've got pitchers and catchers reporting. We will start to have news on a regular basis now, at least in terms of what things are looking like, what people are talking about. We'll have rumors, things that are being discussed. I'm excited for it. Joe, we're gonna sign out here, but do you have any wise words for the people? Any extra thoughts before we sign off?
yeah, the Reds will be wearing 14 patches for Pete Rose on their uniforms. That was just released, I believe, today. So I have to remember one of the franchise's all-time greats, despite the off-the-field stuff too. And I'm expecting they'll do more for him this season as well. But that's just a little tidbit of what they're going to do with the uniforms this year.
Yeah, excited to see what will happen with that. Hopefully, we will get an idea of the Reds uniforms here soon as well, Joe. But that is going to wrap it up for us on this episode, guys. As always, we hope that you will join us next week. We're going to be going a little bit more in depth, probably either to relief pitchers or to some of the stuff in the lineup. We'll have to see. We're gonna work on that one, but you should check back to see what it's going to be. So thanks for watching, guys, and with that, we'll catch you on the next one.